How is everyone doing? Strength Chat episode 92, and today I have got a very special guest for you. Today I'm joined by the current under 120 kilo world champion, as well as multiple British champion. He's competed in equipped and raw. Today I'm joined by the one, the only, Tony Cliffe. How are you doing?
I'm good, Steve. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
No worries at all. How was that for an introduction?
Yeah, very good. Yeah. It's almost like I wrote it myself.
How are you doing? What's been going on? What have you been up to?
Yeah, all good. I'm getting ready for the World Equipped in sort of 4 weeks. So, yeah, all good. Training's going well. I've not been sharing much of it online for obvious reasons because there's 14 other people watching quite closely. But no, it's going well. I did the Roses equipped a couple of weeks ago. Did 1,100 kilo total there. So yes, things are looking good. I've had some new kit on in the last couple of weeks, which has been horrendous. But other than that, yeah, all good.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of people try. I think it's a workout in itself, trying to put the gear on as opposed to lifting.
Yeah, they stretch pretty quick, but the first 2 or 3 sessions in like a brand new deadlift suit and a brand new bench shirt is horrendous. But yeah, you soon stretch them out. It's all good.
So where's that competition going to be then? Where's that at?
So that's Dubai.
Okay.
Yeah, so I fly out on the 17th of November, so it's not long, and I compete on the 22nd of November.
All right, okay. So a couple of days just to get there and get acclimatized.
Yeah, well. So my work has an office there, so I can work in the office for a couple of days as well beforehand. So I don't use up loads of holiday whilst getting sort of acclimatized to the 35-degree weather, however it'll be at that
time. I went to this year. I went on holiday to Florida. And yeah, over there it was like 30 odd degrees, and I was just thinking this was straight after the British. And I was just thinking, I don't know how people would lift in this. I'd be just an absolute sweaty mess, not being able to do anything.
Yeah, the good thing about Dubai is everyone's got excellent air conditioning.
All right, okay.
So it should be absolutely fine. I went there in August and it was 47 degrees every day and nearly 80% humidity. So basically you couldn't go outside, but everywhere inside was lovely.
Yeah. Oh, what a lovely shopping mall this is.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I trained at a club there called Desert Barbell, which is a really good powerlifting club. They got all the Lico kit everywhere. I don't know if it's the official training venue for the championship, but I've trained down there a couple of times. The lads there are brilliant, and wow, what a place! Like going from my garage to I'll just pop to Dubai and go into Desert Barbell. It's like a completely different scenario, but yeah, it's brilliant.
Oh, cool. So obviously watched you at the Worlds, seen you compete at the British. For anyone listening that doesn't know, obviously been around British powerlifting for quite a while, competing equipped and raw. Do you just want to give a little bit of a background to yourself?
Oh, yeah. So like you said, I've been competing in powerlifting now for probably 20 years. I'm 35, I think, if I remember correctly. So I did my first.
You want no one?
Yeah. No one's gonna know. So I did my first competition when I was about 15 or 16, and then obviously, low numbers. I think I did a 160 squat of like 100 kilo bench and a 200 deadlift, something like that. I've been competing internationally since about 2009. I think I did my first Western Europeans in Norway in 2009. And I've pretty much done sort of every European and World Equipped Championships since then until 2012 when the Classic first came in. And then I've done every Classic World Championships from 2012 up until the one that was in Canada, which I missed. And then obviously last year. So come in like 4th and 3rd and 4th and 2nd and whatnot until eventually I managed to break through and win this year.
Yeah. Just touching on that, obviously, watching it, I don't think, especially on the stream when it went to the medal ceremony, I don't think I've seen a more chuffed bloke than you stood on the platform. How did it feel? What does it feel like to be, a world champion?
To be honest, at that point, it was just a really nice feeling to know that I wasn't going to be on the list of strongest people that never won a world championship. So it was quite a relief, to be honest, in the end. I think after the squats had happened and a couple of people had missed a couple of squats, I thought, right, I know exactly what I've got to do here, which was drop my openers and just get every lift. Because I think once I'd got to that point at the end of the squats, I knew that everyone else would have to take a bit of a gamble, like on the bench or the deadlift, or to have any chance to catch me. No, luckily no one did, and no one really put anything that really pushed me after that point. So I thought, so it was actually even more nerve-wracking than just being in a tough battle, because I just knew I had to just keep getting them in, which luckily I managed to do.
Yeah, absolutely. From watching it, it was it was quite sort of a like a clinical performance, if you like, just sort of walking out, getting the job done. What was it like, sort of behind the scenes in sort of the warm up room? What was the chat? Because who was handling you?
Well, I'm quite calm anyway. So it was me. It was me and Henry, really. Henry Tosh, and I'm quite relaxed and calm in the warm room. I'm not one for going crackers and throwing stuff around, or losing my marbles under pressure or anything. I've been around it long enough that I feel like I perform best when I am like that as well, quite placid and relaxed. Other people obviously don't react well to being like that, and they need to get hyped up and amped to go out for their lift. But I feel like if I'm like that in the warm room and all the way through, I'm just knackered by the time we get to deadlifting. So I have to pace myself. But yeah, no, it was quite relaxed, and we're calm, we're very methodical, very calm in the choices of lifts that we're making and while we're making them, to just keep sort of ticking the box. It was quite a calm experience, really, for us. Just let other people panic and run about and have to pick crazy numbers. It was I mean, I've been in the warm-up room when other people, things are going wrong, and obviously I think at that point it's good that if you can be in a position where you've got people around you that can stay calm as well. Obviously the coaches always do, the British powerlifting coaches do, which works well for me. With other lifters, I think they do like to get a bit hyped up, and they probably need people around them to be more hyper as well. But I think I'm not like that at all, quite calm. And I often like having a bit of a laugh and a joke, because that relieves the nerves for me. Other people use that nerve energy to get amped, whereas I'll try and laugh it off.
Sometimes I think when you're getting sort of like really psyched up and all that sort of stuff, I think sometimes it can be, you forget what you actually need to do and end up going out and missing it, or, losing, like changing your setup or whatever it may be. So having watched, the worlds and, watched other competitions, I think, especially if you've gone into the competition knowing that your lifts are going well and your training's been going well, a little bit like what you said at the start there, just going out and knowing what you needed to do and just make sure that you get the lifts, because if lifts are missed, then you're always going to be struggling, like thinking, oh well, do I need to change my deadlifts, do I need to change my bench, or whatever it may be.
There can be a real horrible trap of overthinking everything, and often you perform best when there's literally nothing going through your mind at all. And all you've got to concentrate on is the movement. And I often feel like that is, where a lot of people do go wrong in making a lift on the day, is they probably overthink one element, so they overcompensate for something, and they that's when it goes wrong. If you can turn your stupid brain off, if you've done the movement often enough and it's ingrained as much as it should be, then really you can just switch your brain off, enjoy the moment, and just get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, coming from I've competed in powerlifting, a couple of years now, and coming from a rugby background, it was always a case of, right, you've done all training, you go out on the pitch and you just play your game. And I've tried to sort of it is a little bit different because you can't just say, oh, well, Joe Bloggs dropped that ball, so he didn't score it, so it's his fault. But in an individual sport like powerlifting, it is just a case of, look, you've done the work, you've just got to go out and, don't overthink it. You should know, where you're at.
I think at the level that you're at, that has a more of an impact. So, because I've played rugby and I wasn't very good, but when I got a bit bigger, I changed positions. So I used to play out on the wing, didn't know what I was doing. I was just quite quick. But obviously, when I was older and a lot bigger, I played second row, but I didn't know the game at all. So I was massively overthinking where should I be? Do I need to be at that breakdown? Do I need to drop back? Where do I need to be? And massively overthinking where I should be in that game. And I can imagine somebody doing something similar in powerlifting if you've not been doing it very long. That you just overthink every little thing, and that can throw you off massively. That's where you just need a calming voice in your ear saying, don't worry about any of that, concentrate on what you need to get right.
Yeah, absolutely. What's interesting is thinking from, because my first powerlifting competition, basically a guy that I worked with called Chris Kershaw, he gave me a program and basically said, right, you're going to compete in 12 weeks. So, right, I ended up doing that and did a first competition and then built it on from there. And now looking back at a couple of people that taken the competition for their first competition, it's a little bit like, I remember one guy just chatting about, he was worried about the laces on his shoes, and it's a little bit like, that doesn't matter what you're thinking about, just do your warm up. But thinking about that, I'm sure there was things like I did in the first competition that you think about, and it's like, well, actually, I don't need to worry about this. I just need to focus on what I'm doing, and whoever's handling you or the coach that's with you, they can worry about that, and you just focus on doing the lifts.
Yeah, and that's a very important at international level as well. That if you get too involved in the game of trying to chase people and worrying about what other people are either hitting or missing, it can really throw your mindset off for what you need to be doing. Obviously, I've been doing it a long time now. And if you trust the coaches enough, you just don't even look at the scoreboard. So you don't need to worry about what everyone else is doing. You just concentrate on yourself. A lot of people don't even want to know what weight is being put on the bar. So they go out for you, especially an international, just leave it to the coach and let them pick. You just go out and do the job. But it's very difficult to go from where you're sat to underneath the bar without noticing a scoreboard somewhere that's got, oh Christ, that's a PB. Oh, that's a European record on the bar. I'm amazed by the people who manage to get to the bar and they don't know what's on it. I don't think I've managed it
yet. So looking at, obviously we chatted about obviously on the day, and sort of in the lead up to Worlds, a little bit obviously now that you're going to compete in the Equip Worlds, now that because it seems that everyone now puts it's like a training diary really of what you've done on social media and everything. Obviously it went a little bit dark as you were going into Worlds. What was the plan going into Worlds? How was training going? Did you do anything different, or was it how was the plan going in?
Yeah, it wasn't perfect. I tweaked my back a few weeks before I started my build up. So it's probably, I can't remember exactly the date, how it panned out, but it's probably about 8 weeks out. I was having real trouble with my lower back, and I was going to physio and trying to get it sorted, as well as trying to carry on training. I was squatting early in the morning. I was getting up before work and squatting because I knew time-wise when we were getting to Sweden, it was going to be like, getting out of bed at 5 a.m. equivalent,
right,
going and weighing in and then squatting first thing in the morning. Now, there's nothing worse than having gone through a period of your phase of training in an evening, and then you get to comp day and all of a sudden you've got to get up at 5 a.m. and go and try and pick an opener. Yeah, that's not going to work. That's why I opened my squats really, really quite light for me. My PB raw was like 340, and I opened on 300 and wasn't planning on doing much more than 330. But obviously with a bit of a back tweak, I wasn't able to really hammer deadlifts all that hard. I was doing what I could. In fact, just before, it was probably about 5 or 6 weeks out from Worlds, I had a trip to Dubai with work, and I trained in Desert Barbell, and that was probably the last time I deadlifted heavy.
Right.
Because after that, and I think it was, I trained on the Thursday before I flew back, and the flight back was at like 3 a.m. or something. So I trained, sort of had a couple of hours sleep on the couch, got up and got in a taxi and went to the airport, and then tried to sleep on the plane. And I'd squatted high volume on the Thursday, and I think just traveling back, I'd just got a bit inflamed and a bit stiff.
Right.
And that took weeks to sort out. So my training was, although I was getting through the numbers and doing what I couldn't really push all that hard.
Okay.
I was like, well, I just need to get it so it's functioning, so I can go and make some lifts.
Yeah.
But I wasn't really hammering it, and I knew I was at the top of the nominations in terms of totals. I was just like, well, I just need to turn up and be able to get 3 lifts in, and then hope for the best on the rest of it.
Okay.
Bench was going really well.
Yeah.
I was hoping for a bit more out of my bench, which is why I dropped my opener from 230 to 225 after we got to the end of the squats, because I thought, well, it's pretty much, it's there. All I've got to do is keep making lifts. I was planning on having to go at 250 if I could get 230, 240, and then, well, maybe on the third, if I'm really being pushed, I could stick 250 on. Well, looking back at it now, probably 242 and a half, 245 was probably about the most I had.
Yeah.
But lead up to it, it was going really well.
Yeah.
And obviously deadlift not great, but then the squat not great either, because I couldn't really push it all that hard. I think the most I went up to was like 270 for 3 sets of 5, something like that. Nothing really heavy.
Yeah,
I just couldn't do it, and then just rested for like a week and a half before the comp.
Right. Okay. How was your back afterwards? Like, did you take a little bit of time off, or?
What did I take? I probably had like a week and a half of doing nothing, and then I went back just really light. I think my first session back, I did like 240 triples, something like that, and that was about it. And I was just easing my way back in. And so it's funny because I'm getting back into the equip stuff. All of it, I know it sounds crazy because you're using more weight, but because you've got the support of the equipment,
Yeah.
the injuries that you feel like you had raw disappear. Like you could put a squat suit, it's like putting a suit of armor on. All of a sudden, that hip pain that I had, gone. Don't feel a thing. Oh, that back tweak, gone. Or admittedly, you start creating other injuries that you didn't know about. But
I've just got an image of other people thinking,
maybe I should go and put a squat suit on
all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, well, then you just get something else will hurt, like your ankle or something. Yeah, something random.
Oh, good. Yeah, obviously, having followed your progress, having not known that about your back and everything, and still being able to go there and get the job done on the days, is good. And back's all fine now, training wise with the
No, it's been fine. Yeah.
Go on. So obviously you've mentioned there about traveling a little bit with work, and obviously having kids as well, and a day-to-day life. There's sometimes you'll see some people that they just seem as though like they just live in the gym. How have you been able to manage it around sort of still being able to work, kids, and because obviously at your level, obviously there's got to be a little bit of a balance to be able to make sure that you are getting the training in, and making sure recovery and all that sort of stuff. How have you been able to manage it?
Well, I mean, we spoke about it a little bit beforehand, didn't we? That in my younger years, I was only training twice a week, and then since I had a family, I changed that to initially I changed it to 5 days a week, and that was I come home from work, put the kids, get the kids ready for bed. I went out and did a run. She's into running. That's my wife, by the way. And I would then go out and do like an hour's training in the garage. Like, I haven't got to go to a gym. I've got the gym in the garage, so I can just pop out and do an hour. And I did that sort of 5 days a week for a little while, and then I felt like 5 was probably too many, and I could probably put a little bit more into those 4 sessions and drop the 5th one. So now I'm training Monday through Thursday. Those sessions Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday probably last like an hour and a half, and then the Thursday session's a bit longer, it's like a couple of hours. Obviously, back when I was doing only 2 days a week, those sessions were like 3.5 hours, maybe even 4 hours long if it was an equip session.
Wow. Okay, wow.
So it'd be like a brutal Monday and like a brutal Thursday, but nothing in between.
Right.
But that wasn't very conducive to having sort of family life and stuff, because I would finish work. I finish work at like 5:30, go to the gym, do a 4-hour session, don't get home till 10, half 10 at night.
Yeah.
So that wasn't great. So I just went from that to the extra number of days, and then so get home from work at like 6:30, 7 o'clock, look after the kids for an hour, get them ready for bed, put them to bed, and then go out and do my training session, which was like 8 till 9:30.
Yeah.
That's me every night, Monday to Thursday, and then obviously like tonight free, and I keep the weekends free for spending time with the family, or going to Masters British, which I'll do this weekend.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Nice. Where is the Masters? Where is
Lincoln.
Oh, okay. That one could be in a sort of a central place. I know we were chatting before about it was a bit far south the last two British.
I wouldn't be driving to Dover to watch the Masters British, but a couple of hours to Lincoln I can live with.
I think actually, there was myself, there was a lad in the 93s, a lad in the 83s, and then there was a lad in the 66s, and we had a little chalet, and one of the lads went for a walk on the beach, and I don't know whether he was winding us up, but he said he got a French phone signal. That's how far south it was. And I was like, "Are you sure?" And he was like, "Yeah, honestly, I did." So I don't know whether they charged him for it, but
it doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
So just touching on your training from there. Obviously now training Monday to Thursday. Do you find that doing 4 days in a row has an effect on, like, by Friday, are you a little bit like, right, I could do with a little bit of a rest, or does it affect any other sessions? How do your sessions work?
Well, it's really quite a simple split. So especially when in that phase of doing the equipped stuff. So this week, for example, I do like an equipped squat on Monday. I'm up to a heavy single.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the entire session. Equipped bench on Tuesday. I did like 3 heavy singles. That's it. That's the end of that session. Wednesday, did a heavy equipped pin pull. So the reason I'm pulling off pins is because of the new deadlift suit, and I can't get to the bar yet. Again, that was up to a heavy single. Yeah. And then Thursday was volume night. So raw squat and bench volume, 5s on squat and 8s on bench. So as long as you're keeping that base volume there on that Thursday session, I don't have to do too much other than just concentrate on technical heavy single work on the other 3 days. Yeah. And that seems to work really well on like my equipped week. And then I'll have like a raw week. Well, I would normally have a raw week next week. I'm putting all the kit back on next week, but I'd normally have I'd have a raw week after the equipped week. And again, that would be Monday, like 3 5s or 3 3s, depending on what I did in the program, on the squat. And then Tuesday bench session, same, usually 5s, to try and keep the volume up from obviously having only done one sort of volume session on the prior week. Yeah. Deadlift, whatever variation I feel like doing, if anything. Yeah. And then again, same thing, squat and volume, squat and bench volume on the Thursday, but obviously a lot lighter in the raw week because you've done a load of volume in the prior days, and then back to an equipped week the following week. And I would just flow like that. Yeah, I do that for probably 8 or 9 weeks in the entire peak. Yeah, and that's it really. Yeah.
So from obviously, having when you said at the start there, doing your first competition, at 15 and progressing through, how has your training changed? Or like at the minute, obviously you mentioned there about that's your set routine that you'll usually use. Is it just been trial and error that you've been playing around with different methods? Because obviously going from twice a week now to Monday and Thursday, how have you got to knowing what sort of works for you?
Yeah, I mean, largely trial and error. I think, and over time, it's changed in the outcome of that trial and error. Yeah. So also when I was younger, when you're younger, anything works, right? doesn't really matter. Like you've not done any training before. If you're doing something, you're going to get better and you're going to get stronger, and you don't get yourself too hung up on what it is that you've been doing, because you could do 8s, you could do 5s, you could do triples, you could do, as long as your technique's getting better and you're not injuring yourself. Pretty much, as long as you're doing enough work, you will continue to get stronger for a period of time. So I won't concentrate on that period too much. But when I was sort of seriously started competing after I came out of the juniors, sort of when I started backlifting in sort of 2006, after I finished junior, I sort of went back to, right, I really want to take it a bit more seriously and get to the British standard. At that time, qualifying for a British seniors was hard. It was all equipped stuff back then.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, right, I need to get my act together here in terms of training and diet and rest and everything, and actually, try and take it a bit more seriously. It was obviously when I was at uni and didn't take anything seriously. So back then, what was I doing? Probably 5.5s as a base, as just a strength builder, and I'd switch out. So what I'd do is like cycle through 5s, triples, and doubles on a weekly basis, and just cycle through that for like 12 weeks, and hopefully I'd have a competition coming at the end of that and actually see something come out the back of. I mean, what a lot of people try and do is get stronger before you do a comp, but I would just try and get as many comps in a year as I could, because then I'd actually have something to aim for in my training. I did that for a long time. Obviously over time you sort of get a bit more sophisticated in what you're trying to do in your training. You're trying to improve on weak points, or what you perceive as weak points. At the time, you're just weak. You're trying to get stronger overall. I mean, I spent a lot of that initial period actually just trying to gain body weight. So I was quite tall. Well, I'm quite tall. I probably shrunk a bit since then. So I went from like when I finished uni, I probably weighed 85 kilos. So like that. I was like 6'3" and weighed 85 kilos. It was like a beanpole. It was like, hey, you're never going to be a powerlifter. I gradually just gained weight up until I got to, probably about 110 kilos. And at the time back then, the body weight classes were still the old way, like 110s, 125s. 125 was the open. So I think I'd got myself up to just about the top of the 110, falling into the 125s when they changed the weight categories. Right. I was like, that's perfect for me, because I had thinking that I'm going to have to try and gain another 15 kilos body weight, which actually means I've got to try and gain like 20 kilos body weight. And I was already feeling like I was struggling to get any more on.
Yeah.
So it worked out quite well for me, and now I'm at the point I'm at now. I wish I was the 125. So that had a big bearing on the type of training I was doing, because I was trying to gain weight the whole time.
Yeah.
So I had to get all the volume in. I was trying to do all this 5.5 stuff and all that. I mean, I haven't done 5. Actually, I spoke to you earlier about listening to Ray's podcast.
Yeah.
He did, I think it was like 2018, where he's talking about when he first started training, he was doing lots of 5.5s, and eventually got to a point where he was lifting enough weights that were just beating him up and he couldn't do it anymore. Yeah. Well, it was beating me up, but with a lot less weight. I felt exactly the same way. Your knees are knackered, you're struggling a little bit, so you have to start thinking a bit more carefully about what you're doing. Yeah. But again, I was doing equipped back then, so like I was doing like exactly the same as I'm doing now, and I'd do an equipped week, and then I'd do a raw week, and then an equipped week and a raw week, and just cycle through it. And obviously with equipped lifting, if your kit's tight enough, you ain't going to be doing much more than doubles or triples. If it's really tight, you can't do much other than singles. So you just got to plan that into your training and accept that that week's just going to be a heavy week, and you're not going to have the same amount of volume. Obviously the intensity is much higher, but you can make up for the volume in the following week once you do your raw stuff. And I haven't really changed away from that, but obviously I've taken those 2 days of training and I've spread it out over 4 days. And I really feel like that is a big thing when I was talking to people about changing from 2 days to 4 days or 5 days. Oh, you're going to be doing loads more training. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just going to do the same amount of training. I'm just going to spread it out over a longer period, and probably my recovery and my fatigue level I'll be able to manage it a bit better, because I won't just be drilling myself into the ground and then having to spend a week to recover to do the next session.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's sometimes everyone chatting with people and what obviously mentioned there about Ray and yourself have done similar things to try and progress through. I think people have had similar starting points, and I think everyone gets to a point where it's a little bit like, exactly like you say, like you don't want to end up just being beat up because you're not going to be able to lift anything. From equipped and raw, have you found the transition between both relatively easy? Do you prefer one to the other? What have you found?
I prefer competing equipped
Yeah.
because the day is more stressful. There's more going on. There's more of that fear and panic, and you start to enjoy that
Okay.
when you really get into that feeling of I may fail my opener. I don't know if I'm going to get depth. My suit might feel a bit different today. There's all of that worry. Whereas a raw competition, you don't really have any of that, and certainly not to the same degree. There are so many less variables and so many less factors, and feel like things that can't go wrong. It's kind of predictable. I feel it really predictable, and I know I'm going to a competition. I know exactly what numbers I'm capable of doing, and 9 times out of 10, I'll be able to do them at a raw comp.
Yeah.
You go to a equip comp, you probably got a 50-50 chance of getting those numbers that you're going in expecting to happen because things go wrong. And that's what makes it more exciting on a comp day. I think training for equipped is so much harder that you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it.
Yeah.
And you do feel like that is quite Marmite. That some people really enjoy the bruising and the feeling of that feeling you get. Or even you feel like when you've finished training equipped, you feel like you've been hit by a train. When you've finished training raw, you've probably done a lot more work, like volume wise, and more sets, and probably quite a bit of effort have gone in the same way that a lot of effort goes into your equipped lifting, but you just feel so much more battered after an equipped session. And I think there's been quite a lot of research into whether or not that's anything to do with your central nervous system or that, and apparently it's not. But you do feel like you've been hit by a train when you finish an equipped training session, and you don't feel like that after a raw session, no matter how much work you put in, because you're just not at that over 100% level,
Absolutely, yeah. I think that, if that's an advertisement for anyone listening who's new to powerlifting, you can do equipped and you'll feel like you've been hit by a train. And raw powerlifting, you'll probably feel like you've just been hit by a car. So it's there's 2 different spectrums that you can put on there. Just on that for the equipped side of things, obviously, with the suit and a couple of more variables, do you think that makes it a little bit more? I don't know whether competitive is the right word, but it's a little bit more open.
It's definitely more open. Yeah, because things can go wrong. So you can get someone who's nominated way out in front of everyone else, but they missed their first 2 squats, and all of a sudden it's all open again.
Yeah.
Then there's a lot of pressure on that last lift. Things can go badly wrong. Obviously, you don't want that to happen to your competition. You'd rather everyone got all their lifts.
Yeah.
But it does open the door to, there's definitely going to be, 9 times out of 10 you'll get out of a group of say like what's nominated for my class in the world. I think there's 25 of us now left on the nominations. There's probably going to be 2 or 3 of them that bomb on one of the lifts. It will happen, and you don't want that to happen, but it can, and that does leave that sort of spark of hope for the person who's sort of nominated in 6th place that anything can happen. And I've seen it a few times where the favourites open too heavy and it all goes wrong, and that's equipped lifting.
Yeah, because you look at some of from the raw side of things, usually, for at Worlds and, even at sort of national level, looking at the British Championships and the American Championships that have just been on, there's always sort of like maybe 2 or 3 or a group of lifters that are there or thereabouts, and that you won't be too surprised if someone, he was a little bit lucky coming 4th, but, the top 3 were you always knew they were going to get there. Whereas, I suppose from a competitive point of view, if something like that does happen, if the favourite, doesn't get any of the squats, it's a little bit like, oh right, well, what's going to happen now?
game on. It's all of a sudden 3 people have got a real shot at winning it, and it starts to become really much more competitive.
Yeah.
I do feel like that about it, and I do feel like the Raw does become a bit predictable.
Yeah.
If you look at the nominations for a Raw competition, very often it does come out that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, it does.
With that, because obviously from the transition to Raw now is like with the World Championships, it's sort of like taken over in popularity, obviously from the equipped. What do you think? Sort of why is that? Because obviously, looking at what you mentioned in there about the equipped side of things, like it can be a little bit more interesting. What's your sort of take on that?
I think accessibility has a big factor. I think obviously when you first start out lifting, it's a lot easier to just put a belt on and put a pair of knee sleeves on. So if you've got the option to compete like that, and there is a world stage to compete like that, obviously people will do that initially. I do feel like that people will try the equipped stuff at some point, and there does start to be a build. Certain countries have never really moved away from it, where they have bigger populations of powerlifters, where the bulk of the lifters aren't just all juniors and coming through the ranks like we have here. We had a big explosion of lifters. Lots of women joined and lots of juniors. And I think over time that will start to spill over into the equipped. When you look at countries like Ukraine, Russia, Norway, America, they've still got masses and masses of equipped lifters and very good standard equipped lifters as well.
Yeah.
I think eventually, I hope eventually people start to try it, because even if you never go and compete at an international equipped, if you put a piece of equipment on, you'll learn a lot about your lifting.
Yeah.
You'll learn a lot about equipped lifting, but you'll also learn the style that you've naturally evolved in your raw lifting as well.
Yeah.
And I do feel like there's a lot to be gained from that. Even if you never go and do an equipped competition, you put a piece of kit on and you realise I've got a weakness there that I never knew I had. Well, okay, you might be able to work on that, and that might help you raw. I found that my raw bench improved massively when I put a shirt back on.
Okay.
My lockout strength just went through the roof, obviously, and then everything you lift out of the rack after you've lifted out 300 kilos on your own in the gym, nothing feels heavy anymore. So you don't have that fear and where you slow down on your descent like you used to have when stuff was heavy. All of a sudden, it opens a door and you go, oh, actually, I can do this, because I know if I can get it halfway up, I'm going to lock it out.
Yeah.
And I think mentally sometimes there are some weights that are big barriers along the way. Like when you first start training a 100 kilo squat, then a 200 kilo squat, and then a 300 kilo squat.
Yeah.
Starts to become like a real mental block. You can get past that by just sticking a bit of kit on, and it actually becomes quite normalized for you. Like a 400 kilo squat for me now is quite normalized.
Yeah.
Like going out in the gym and thinking, oh, I've got to squat 400 kilos tonight, 6 months ago, 12 months ago, was quite a mental challenge. The last I've squatted 400 kilos in the gym the last 6 weeks on the trot. Going out and putting 400 kilos on the bar now means very little to me mentally. It's not difficult to do.
I think with the psychology side of things, and you said it earlier on, sort of, it's like putting a suit of armor on, because I do think an example is what came straight into my head is that where I'll run a couple of weeks blocks, and then we'll work up to some heavy singles in the powerlifting club that I run. And there was this one woman, and literally like 95, 97 and a half kilos, absolutely flew, like no issue. In fact, I think at some point she did it for like a couple of reps, and then when it was 100, apparently it was like this crazy weight. But at one point I just went a little bit like what you said about coaches just putting weight on the bar and people walking out and lifting on the platform. I just put it on and I was like, right, that's what you're going to pull. I do think it is weights, exactly as you say, weights can get in people's head a little bit, and that's half sort of the battle lost then if you think, no, well, I'm not gonna be able to do this.
I don't know what the outcome of this experiment was, but I've never seen a video of Bryce Lewis. They'd loaded up a squat and they put plastic bags over the weights on the squat.
Oh yeah,
And he went out and squatted it, not knowing what was on the bar.
yeah.
I'm sure that would help in some scenarios for people to, not have the mental block. A bit of a placebo, I guess, the opposite of a placebo.
In my head, I can imagine that, like, if that had gone wrong, I don't think it would have been shared, because I think it can be sort of, I get the idea behind it, but then I also think, there's only so much that you can get. There's only so much you can get from that. Just on about the equip side of things, on just a little bit of a tangent.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like, there's other countries that still do equip quite a lot, and I don't know whether you've seen the West Side versus the World that came out. Obviously, like that, they were all equipped, and there was a bit near that was just basically saying, like, now that powerlifting has moved slightly more towards the raw side of things, West Side sort of isn't there anymore. Do you think that, like what you're saying about people will try equipped, do you think it's just a case of it's in a transition period, and people will end up going back to that, or what do you think?
I mean, if I'd never done equipped before and I watched the West Side documentary, I'm not sure I'd ever try it. Well, you'd put me off completely.
Yeah.
But not everyone who does equipped is a complete mad dog lunatic and wants to kill themselves in the gym every time they go in it. But it did raise the profile of equipped lifting to probably a lot of people that had not really seen it before. I'm not sure it's truly representative of equipped lifting in the IPF.
Yeah.
In any way. And it probably a little bit off-putting. But I'd encourage everyone to watch the World Equipped and take it seriously. Even people who have not really showed it any interest before. Yeah. Just give it a bit of attention, because I think what you'll find is you will pick stuff up from it. You'll pick stuff up from it from the quality of the caliber of the lifting, for one. I think if you look across the classic world results, certainly from this year, you'll see there's probably a handful of people in the top tier of each weight class, maybe 4 or 5 people that probably could have made the podium. You look at across the equips nominations, and certainly from my perspective, looking at the 120s, there's probably 15 people there that could make the podium.
Yeah.
In my class, and I'm sure that is the case across a lot of the other classes as well. So the depth and breadth of the quality of the competition is deeper. I'm not saying the top standard is any better. I don't think it is. I think you're world champion, right? But given the history and the pedigree of it across those different nations that I mentioned already, there's so much quality and depth across the equipped. We haven't really got that in the raw yet, and I'm sure it's coming, because there's so many fantastic juniors coming through the ranks, and there's almost a new face sort of every year, getting, if not on the podium, very close to it across every weight class in the classic. You don't really get that in the equipped.
Yeah.
It tends to be the faces you've seen for the last 5 years, and it's the same faces, and they're the ones that are delivering, because it's hard to break into that. Yeah. But you do get them coming over, and that's why the caliber just continues to rise on that side, I feel.
Yeah, because it's funny you said there about the West Side things, like you've said there about the competitive side of it, that the film that came out on that was the first sort of like powerlifting specific, if you like. I know there's been sort of like some strongman films that have come out on that sort of stuff, and I just wondered what your take on it was. And
I enjoyed the documentary. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy watching all that mad old buggers going crackers, trying to break all-time world records and all this. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, obviously the style of squatting doesn't suit me from an IPF perspective. I have to turn my head away at the squats. But I mean, the more weight you throw on the bar, the more exciting it can be, the more dangerous it is. Yeah, you do have to be a little bit mad, I think, to want to get under a 500 kilo squat or whatever they're doing, 1,000-pound benches. But we've got Blaine doing those sort of crazy numbers in the IPF as well, single ply. So I look at that and go, yes, it's a comparison.
Yeah.
There are some insane things going on at the IPF.
Well,
world
that's the
single ply equipped.
having watched a couple of following a couple of lifters and seeing people such as yourself doing equipped is sort of like, I'm always of the mind that I kind of want to see how far weights can be pushed and just see
what the limits are.
What can be done. And I think with equipped like that, it's sort of, if you're strong, really, if you're strong raw, right, put a suit on and then just see how that is. So
there are even going to be. I mean, there are a lot of people that do raw and they're so against equipped lifting, and I've never really understood it. And coming from someone who's won raw worlds, I like raw lifting, but I do feel like some people are quite, almost fundamentalist about it. It's got to be raw. It's got to be me who's lifting the weight. It's all about strength. But I do feel like you're missing out on something, and it's hard to tell them what they're missing out on until you've managed to get them in the kit. And as soon as you get someone in the kit, and they're not just saying, "Yeah, but the kit's doing all the work," blah blah blah. Yeah, okay. I've heard that so many times. And once they get that out of their mind, you start to realize the enjoyment you can get from sticking a bit of kit on, and all of a sudden you've jumped 50 kilos in your lifts. It is a good feeling, you know. It's exciting. It's scary. There's you need help. There's more collaboration needed. I mean, training equipped on your own is horrendous. I'll tell you that. But it does create like the need to be around other lifters, and I think that's good for the community as well in terms of powerlifting. That you need powerlifting friends in order to train equipped, and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone thinks that that powerlifting is all right. There's just yourself that walks out onto the platform, but sometimes that if you are going to have crap sessions, whether it's raw or equipped, and especially sometimes probably more so with equipped, after what you've been saying, that it's good to have that community and that support network around you. Which, to be fair, like, I know we were chatting a little bit before we started the podcast, that having to be able to speak to yourself, spoken to Ray Williams as well, the community side of things, that everyone wants to see people do well, everyone wants to have a chat about it, because really everyone wants to get involved in powerlifting, because everyone, like you said, everyone wants to get strong and then get stronger and see what the top guys and women can do.
Well, it leads me on to what I love about the sport generally, is that because we play team sports, and obviously you get a lot of camaraderie from your team and enjoyment out of being around your friends and doing that together. In powerlifting, you do get the same thing. It is an individual sport, but you're always competing against yourself as well. There's another thing that I mean, at the time you asked Ray where he finds the motivation to carry on breaking these records and doing these things and continuing to compete, when really is so far ahead of the competition that he's competing against, that doesn't feel like there's much of a competition there for him. But why do you do it? And he's quite clear that he's competing against himself, the best version of himself from the last time he competed, and he wants to beat that. And I feel like everyone feels like that when they're going into competition, and that's why the community is the way it is so open and warm and welcome and encouraging, because you just want people to do well for themselves. It's a competition at the end of the day, and somebody has to go home a winner. But often you'll go to a competition, and if you do really well and you feel like you've done well against your own PBs, you go away very happy from that competition, regardless of who's won, second, third. It makes no difference. That's the absolute beauty of it.
So everyone listening, the bit that we mentioned about being hit by a train and hit by a car, that was the advertisement for powerlifting. There we go. So going forward, do you think that you'll continue to do a little bit more equipped, a bit more raw, or do you reckon you'll still balance both out going forward in terms of like your own goals and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I think I'll do a bit of both. I would like to get to the World Games. Right now, the World Games is only equipped. So next World Games is in 2021, so it'll be a qualifying year next year. So I'll definitely be doing equipped next year. If I qualify, I can carry on and do it again in 2021. Obviously, with the SBD Invitational in March.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm interested in competing at that. Obviously, that's Raw. So really try and fit all these things into the calendar. Is like November's a World Equipped, June is World Classic, March has now got another Classic Invitational in it, potentially every year, assuming you win Worlds.
Yeah.
So, it works out okay in that I can do sort of half the year Raw and half the year Equipped.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure where the World Games lands in 2021. I should probably have to check the calendar before we get there, if I qualify. But I do feel like it's a nice split across the year and keeps me motivated as well. For training. If training Raw all year or training Equipped all year can get a bit samey and a bit depressing.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like if I can switch over at some point partway through the year, it keeps me guessing and keeps me interested as well. Because when you're going out and you're training on your own, you need some motivation to go out and do something and be excited by what you're doing in the gym.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because I know you've just sort of twigged my memory when you mentioned about Bryce Lewis. Obviously, he took a year out and then came back and won the US championships this year.
Yeah, I watched it.
Yeah, some of that was sort of he was going away for injury and wanting to do a little bit of recovery and just doing Raw. Whereas obviously you said yourself there that you've competed consistently, fluctuating between the two. So I suppose you always do have that motivation there, because you've got something coming up, rather than just thinking, oh well, I'm only going to compete twice a year and I'm just going to do the same thing over and over again.
I suppose something's got to pique your interest in your training as well. And like I found it going to 5 days a week. I had a chat with a couple of other guys I know that do train way more often than that. And it kind of goes to a little bit into the West Side method of hitting a PB on all these different variations and making sure you've got that in the back of your mind, that there's a box squat, a banded squat, a chain squat, all these different variations, and you can go in and you can plan yourself a whole week where you hit all these different PBs, because there's so many different variations that you can't train them all the time. So they're always attainable variations to hit a PB as well. So it keeps you interested in what you're doing and why you're doing it. Whereas you go out and you just do the raw squat for sets of 5 or triples, eventually you run out of ways of improving on that. Eventually you're gonna peter out even over a few training blocks. Whereas if you can throw some other stuff in there that keeps you interested on front squat, raw squat, high bar, you equip, knee wrap, suit on, straps down, knee wraps on. There are just so many variations that you can always come up with something that you could do a bit better.
Yeah.
I find that really useful. And then you find all these different variations, especially with the equipped, because you can just, there's almost a limitless list of the variations that you can get around. Even with me in the garage, with just a power rack, well, I can come up with 1,000 different exercises that I can try and PB on, and it keeps me interested in what I'm doing and why I'm doing it.
Oh, cool. So obviously quite a lot of things chatted about there. I've been looking forward to chatting you. Obviously, having myself, having only last year was my first British. This year was only my second, and to see a lifter such as yourself at the British, and also watching you compete at the Worlds, and then to be able to chat with you and pick your brains has been awesome. For everything that we've chatted about, competing at the Worlds, training, equipped, all that sort of stuff. For everyone listening, have you got some pearls of wisdom or take-home points?
Don't take it all too seriously. It's just training. It's a hobby. Enjoy it. I think I keep saying it on quite a few posts, is that if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Taking it all too seriously, and I've got to do this and I've got to do that, I've got to achieve this. You haven't got to do any of that. You've got to enjoy yourself, because we've got lives to lead and you've got jobs to do, and this is supposed to be something you do for fun. So carry on keeping it fun. And that's what I love about all those variations and different things we're talking about with equip lifting is just to keep it interesting for me and keep it fun.
Yeah. Absolutely. I feel like editing the final scene of Life of Brian on that, just sort of like always looking on Bright side of life. There you go.
yeah, stick it on.
So for everyone listening who, after listening to your chat there, wants to watch you at the IPF World, or look at the training that you're doing, where can people find that?
Yeah, well, you can find me on Instagram, TMC Power on Instagram. I'm usually posting up videos of my training and stuff, but obviously the last few weeks of training before World Championship, I don't post much of my training up. I'm not sure it makes any difference, but it's a bit of a superstition now.
Yeah.
But I'll be posting up a link to where the streaming is. Obviously, if you go on the IPF website, you can find it through there and the YouTube channel and whatnot. So it should be dead easy to find, and hopefully the streaming will be absolute top quality as well. So.
Awesome. So best of luck at the IPF World. Thanks a lot for taking the time to chat with me. Really enjoyed chatting with you. I hope everyone enjoyed that as much as I did, and I will see you all next week.
Thank you, mate. See ya.